Lana adjusted the lens and let out a slow, steady breath. The ceremony had just ended, and the late afternoon light draped gently over the Pacific horizon behind the altar. Her younger sister, Lena, had just said, "I do," under an arch of white orchids. The guests were applauding, the music swelled, and someone popped open a bottle of champagne. But Lana only half heard the celebration. She was thinking about angles, about edits, about how to frame this moment so it would last forever. Photography wasn't just her job, it was her anchor. For the last 10 years, Lana had documented other people's memories while quietly maintaining her own. Her husband, Thomas, often joked that she lived behind the lens more than in front of it. But that was fine by her. Being behind the camera gave her clarity, distance, control. Thomas had been supportive, in that polished, dependable way of his. At 37, he managed regional logistics for a tourism company and always looked put together. He wore ironed linen even to family barbecues. He knew which wine paired with what, which fork to use at formal dinners, and how to win over her mother with well-timed compliments. Everyone loved Thomas, especially her mother. "You're so lucky, Lana," her mother had said countless times, resting a manicured hand on Lana's arm. "Thomas is so grounded, so loyal, he's like a son to me." Lana used to agree, used to feel lucky, until the wedding. There was a moment, brief and almost invisible, when Lana saw something she couldn't quite name. It was after the ceremony, while she was scrolling through footage on the back of her camera, selecting shots to compile for a surprise edit. A wide shot of the reception tent, then a pan past the catering staff, then Thomas, standing close to Lena. Too close. They were laughing at something not unusual. They got along, but his hand, resting on the small of Lana's back, fingers grazing just under the strap of her dress, that wasn't familial. Not for Lana. She blinked, rewound, played it again. Still there, just for a second, but enough. Her chest tightened, but she said nothing. Instead, she downloaded the footage to her laptop, telling herself it was nothing, that it was her photographer's mind playing tricks, seeking patterns, tension, implied narratives where there were none. Lena had always been playful, touchy, dramatic. Even as a child, she was the one who danced at weddings, cried at commercials, flirted without meaning to. Lana had spent most of their childhoods cleaning up her messes, from broken curfews to broken hearts. And Thomas, he was just being friendly. Right. Still, a thought buzzed at the edge of her mind, a thought that wouldn't leave. During the days leading up to the wedding, Thomas had seemed distant, not cold, exactly, but elsewhere. His attention wavered during conversations. When Lana showed him the final seating chart, he nodded without looking. When she mentioned that Lena was nervous about her vows, he shrugged. It was subtle, but Lana noticed. She always noticed. The night after the wedding, Thomas fell asleep quickly, too quickly, as if the weight he'd carried had been lifted. Lana, meanwhile, stayed up. She opened her editing software and began sorting through the raw footage. She told herself it was to surprise Lena with a mini video. But really, she wanted to look again. At that moment, that touch, it wasn't just one frame. Not anymore. The more she slowed the footage, the more she saw Lena reaching for Thomas's lapel and smoothing it. Thomas whispering something into her ear. Her laughing, resting a hand on his chest. It didn't scream affair, not yet, but it whispered something worse. Familiarity. Comfort. A language between them that excluded everyone else. Lana sat back in her chair, her heart tapping an uneven rhythm. She stared at the timeline on her screen, her fingers hovering over the delete key. She didn't press it. Instead, she labeled the file, unedited, private. She minimized the window and glanced at the framed photo on her desk, a shot of her and Thomas in Kauai 2 years ago. They were laughing, happy, but now, she couldn't remember what they had been laughing about. The memory felt borrowed. That week, Lana went through the motions. She delivered the wedding photos. She replied to client emails. She attended a community event with Thomas and smiled at the appropriate times. But she began to notice more. Thomas on his phone late at night, typing quickly and turning the screen when she walked in. Lena sending shorter texts, less emojis, less warmth. Their mother praising Thomas more than usual. He was such a calming force during the wedding. She said, "You should be proud of him." Pride wasn't the word Lana would have used. One night, Thomas was showering and his phone buzzed. Lana glanced. A message preview from Lena. "You okay?" She seemed off tonight. She. Not Lana. Just. She. Lana locked the phone again. Her reflection in the dark screen stared back. Unreadable. That night, she opened the video file again. This time, she clipped out a specific portion, the moment behind the reception tent. She slowed it, zoomed, sharpened, then exported it as a separate file. She didn't know why, just that she needed it. In the silence of her home office, surrounded by external hard drives and camera lenses, Lana began to feel like a stranger in her own marriage. Not because of a kiss, not because of a text, but because of everything in between. The things you don't see unless you know where to look. And Lana had always known how to look. She shut the laptop, and for the first time in years, she felt completely, utterly alone, not just in her marriage, but in her family. And that was when she realized. Sometimes, the deepest betrayals don't come from enemies. They come from the ones who hold the camera when you say, "I do," and smile while doing it. The morning after the wedding, Lana made herself a cup of tea instead of coffee. Her hands trembled slightly, but it wasn't from the lack of caffeine. The footage from the night before had settled in her bones, like cold rain in an old roof. It wasn't one image, it was the implication of something seen but not proven, yet impossible to ignore. She returned to her office, slid her headphones on, and clicked open the project timeline. Hundreds of clips lined the screen. Smiling faces, clinking glasses, tears during speeches, all the things that made weddings look like magic. But magic, she was starting to realize, could be edited. She slowed down the footage, frame by frame. There, behind the curtain near the back exit of the tent, where the lighting was softer, the air quieter, she isolated a segment. Thomas and Lena. They weren't just standing close. They were embracing, not a congratulatory hug, not the type shared between in-laws. It was intimate, familiar. Lena's arms looped behind Thomas's neck. His hands gripped her waist with a softness that was practiced, like muscle memory. Then, his lips brushed the back of her neck. Lana froze the frame, then played it again. There was no room for misinterpretation now. This was no accident, no editing trick, no photographic illusion. This was a kiss, a secret, stolen one. Her fingers moved on their own, dragging the clip into a new folder, evidence. For a long while, she didn't blink. Her tea had gone cold. Her heart beat as if somewhere far away, not in her chest. Her breathing was shallow, barely perceptible. She should have screamed. She didn't. Instead, she whispered, "Okay." A confirmation, an acknowledgement, a vow to herself that she wasn't crazy. She walked outside and let the wind hit her face. It was late morning, and the neighborhood was alive with normal things: lawnmowers, kids on bikes, a delivery truck. But to Lana, everything sounded distant, underwater. She was a character who had just stepped outside her own story. She went back inside, picked up her phone, and texted her videographer, Corey. "Hey, random question. Did you guys cut any footage from the Lena and Darren project that you thought I wouldn't need?" A pause. Then the reply, not really. Just some background junk." "Why?" She typed, "No worries. Just being thorough." But her mind screamed, "You knew. You edited it out." Lana opened the main project folder again. Searched for any discrepancies. Time stamps didn't line up. There were missing seconds. Small gaps between clips. Not enough to raise alarm for most. But Lana lived in seconds. In timing. In light shifts and glances. Someone had tried to hide something. She texted Corey again. "Could you send me the raw backup? Just to double-check a couple transitions." He replied a few minutes later, "I'll upload it by tonight." "Need a drive?" She said thanks, then stared at the screen. During the reception, Thomas had danced with Lana only once. It had felt stiff, distracted. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Lena had danced 4 times, with Darren, with their father, with her college friends, and once. Lana remembered, with Thomas, just for a moment. Lana had thought it sweet at the time. Now, she realized they had been trying to be careful, just not careful enough. She scrolled further. One wide shot of the dance floor showed Thomas seated at the edge, drink in hand, watching, but not Lana. Lena. His gaze locked on her in the middle of the crowd, laughing with her friends, twirling, radiant. He watched her like she was his son. Lana watched the footage like it was a eulogy. She copied the file, stored it in the same folder. That night, she didn't ask Thomas about anything. She made dinner, pasta. He complimented the sauce. She smiled. He asked if she wanted to watch something. She said she was tired. In her room, door closed, she played the clip again. The kiss, the gaze. She played them like prayers. Or curses. The next morning, she dressed for a shoot. Neutral colors, simple makeup. But when she looked in the mirror, something had shifted. Her face was the same, but her eyes carried weight. A knowing, a fracture. She texted Lena, "Loved editing the wedding footage. You looked beautiful." Lena replied instantly, "Oh thank you. Love you big sis." Lana stared at the screen, then replied, "Always." Later that day, she bought an external hard drive. A small, black one. She labeled it, "Truth," and tucked it in the bottom drawer of her filing cabinet. Because if no one else was going to hold on to it, she would. Because sometimes, the only evidence you have is what you refuse to delete. And sometimes, love doesn't die in loud betrayals. It dies in whispered names. In eyes that don't look back. In hands that learn the shape of someone else's skin. And Lana knew now. She was standing at the doorway of something vast, dark, and irreversible, and once she stepped through, she could never go back. The next week, Lana began with a spreadsheet. It was her usual process for large projects, organizing footage, client deadlines, editing timelines. But this time, it wasn't for work, it was for time. She started with Thomas's calendar. His supposed work trips, weekend retreats, sudden overnight conferences in Maui or North Shore. She noted the dates, backtracked through her memory, when he left, what he said, how long he was gone. Then she matched those with Lana's social media posts. Some were easy. Lena had uploaded stories from yoga retreats, spa weekends, and solo beach reflections. Captions like, "Time to reset," or "My body, my temple." But Lana noticed patterns. Photos without geotags, lighting that matched weather on the opposite side of the island, a robe that looked familiar. She began overlaying the data, his trips, her retreats. The overlaps weren't coincidences, they were consistent, strategic, intentional. She didn't scream, she didn't cry. Instead, she opened Thomas's old eCloud account. He'd once asked her to help recover it after forgetting a password. She remembered the security questions, their anniversary date, his mother's maiden name, the name of their first dog. Seconds later, she was in. Most of it had been wiped. But not all. Deep in the backups were selfies, partially deleted. But not from cloud storage. Some were blurry, dimly lit, but one stood out. Thomas, shirtless, in a beach house mirror. Behind him, blurry but unmistakable, Lana's reflection. She was in a bathrobe. Not just any robe, a deep maroon velvet one Lana had bought during a trip to Portland. A robe she'd left at home, thinking she'd lost it in the laundry. Her throat went dry. She saved the image, named it silently, northshore.jpg. Then she found an audio folder, mostly mundane voice notes, reminders. But one stood out. It was Lena, leaving a message to their mother. "Hey mom. Just checking in. Wedding plans are stressful. Don't let Lana go crazy with the details. I'll try to get Thomas to calm her down. You know he's good at that. In the background, Thomas laughed. Tell her I'll cook her favorite if she stops reorganizing the napkin placements. Their mother laughed too. Lana dropped the phone. She stood in the middle of the room, shaking. She realized her mother had known. Maybe not everything, but enough. Enough to normalize it, enough to look away. And suddenly, she was back to being 12. Watching her mother cover for Lena after breaking a vase and blaming the dog. Watching Lena get away with it because she cried louder. Because she charmed quicker. Only now the vase was her marriage. Only now the cracks couldn't be swept. She dug further. An Instagram comment from a profile called @islandglow.studio, @LanaVisions is so underrated. Book her before she gets famous. The profile had no posts. But it followed many of Lana's former clients, including ones who had ghosted her recently, choosing other photographers without warning. Lana checked the profile's recovery email. It ended in lena.events@gmail.com. Her sister had been manipulating her client base, smiling to her face, undercutting her behind it. She closed the laptop, let her head fall into her hands. She felt hollow. Not angry, not yet. That would come later. This was the moment between breaths, between certainty and collapse. And she knew this was no longer about marriage. This was war. She reopened the spreadsheet, renamed it Operation Veil, and typed Target 1, Lena, Target 2, Thomas, unknown variable, Mom. Underneath, in bold, objective, truth before ceremony. And the cursor blinked like a metronome for revenge. She clicked open another tab, and started writing a script for a short film, starring herself, directed by the betrayed. Footage, already collected, and soon to be seen. By everyone, even if it was the last gift she ever gave her family. The room was golden with candlelight, filled with the soft clinking of glasses and the hum of a string quartet playing a gentle Hawaiian medley. It was the "thank you" dinner, a gesture of gratitude from Lana and Thomas to both families for their love, support, and presence through the years. But Lana stood at the edge of the room like a ghost observing the living. Her dress was pale blue, her makeup soft and warm, her smile barely stitched to her face. When her name was called to make the toast, she stepped up, slow and graceful, like she had rehearsed it in her head for weeks. Her voice was calm. Thank you all for being here tonight. This room is filled with people who built our lives. People who taught us what love looks like, what loyalty means. She paused, and I want to take a moment to thank two people especially. One, a man who taught me that not every embrace means safety. And the other, a woman who reminded me that not all family is grateful for the life they were given. The air shifted, chairs creaked, a murmur pulsed under the music. Lana took the remote from her clutch. The screen behind her flickered to life. I brought a short highlight reel. Not of a wedding, of something more intimate. The first clip played. Thomas and Lena, behind the wedding tent, arms tangled, a kiss on the neck. Gasps erupted. Someone dropped a fork. Lana didn't turn around to watch. She'd memorized the footage. She looked only at the crowd. At her mother, whose mouth parted but said nothing. At Thomas, frozen. At Lena, whose face drained of color. The next scene, the mirror selfie in the beach house. Lena's reflection, the robe. Lena burst into tears. Thomas stood. Lana, turn that off. He lunged forward and slammed his hand against the projector screen. It tilted. A glass shattered nearby. Lana didn't move. Her voice, when it came, was colder. I spent 10 years believing I was building something sacred. Turns out, I was just decorating the altar you two were desecrating. Lena fled the room. Her heels clacked wildly down the hallway. Someone followed her, calling her name. Thomas stared at Lana, eyes wild. What the hell is wrong with you? You want to ruin your family, in public? Lana held up her phone. You already did. I just kept the receipts. Their mother stood then, walked up, slapped Lana hard across the face. The room gasped again. You went too far, her mother hissed. You think humiliation heals betrayal? You're just spiteful. Lana didn't flinch. She looked at her mother the way someone looks at a stranger who just asked for spare change. Then she stepped down from the platform, gathered her bag, and walked out. That night, Lana received an email from Thomas. A lawsuit, defamation, emotional distress, loss of professional credibility, and then a court order, temporary loss of custody. Thomas had filed emergency documents stating her mental instability was affecting their daughter. She screamed for the first time. Into a pillow, then into her hands, then into nothing. Days passed. Lena released a statement. I made mistakes. I hurt my sister, but no one deserves to be destroyed like that. Rumors swirled that Lena was pregnant. Speculation flooded online forums. Lana said nothing, to no one. She withdrew, deleted her social media, stopped taking clients, moved into a rented studio above a ceramics gallery, spent her mornings photographing objects that didn't lie. One night, she typed a single message to Thomas. You can take the house, the car, your story, just don't use our daughter to cover the filth you left behind. She never got a reply. But in her dreams, she kept seeing that night. The screen lighting up, her sister's face breaking, her mother's hand rising, and herself, standing in the middle of it all. Still, steady, and completely alone. The cost of truth was never clarity. It was exile. It was a Wednesday morning when they found her car, parked at the Makapuu lookout, just beyond the bend, where the cliff rolls into the ocean like a stone surrendering to waves. Lana's gray Subaru sat quietly against the wind. Door locked, keys still inside. In the passenger seat, a brown leather bag. Inside it, a USB drive. And a letter, written in her unmistakable script. I have said what needed to be said. The rest is yours to carry. I won't argue over who deserves the truth. Let it be free. There was no note of farewell. No apology, just that final thought, delivered like the click of a shutter. They searched for days. Coast Guard, local volunteers, even drones hovering above the crashing surf. But there was no body, no signs of a fall, no footprints near the edge. Just the echo of her name in the wind. Some said she had jumped. Others believed she had staged her disappearance. That she had boarded a ferry and started anew somewhere far from the eyes that betrayed her. Whatever the case, Lana was gone, and the island felt colder without her. Thomas lost his job within a week. The footage spread. A cousin leaked it to a blog. Then it went viral. The video wasn't just about infidelity. It was about deception wrapped in family. About betrayal hiding behind lays and luau speeches. Public opinion turned fast. His company issued a statement. We do not condone any form of personal misconduct, especially when it involves abuse of familial or professional trust. Mr. Cahill is no longer employed by our firm. He moved out of their home, tried to clear his name, hired PR, made a podcast appearance, but the internet doesn't forget. He stopped showing up at school events. The court delayed full custody hearings indefinitely. And he drank. Lena gave birth alone. It was a girl. No father listed on the certificate. No family in the room. She wore sunglasses even in hospital photos. When reporters once followed her into a coffee shop, she screamed at them until the manager escorted her out. She no longer smiled in public. And when she did, it didn't reach her eyes. People whispered, maybe she didn't know. Maybe she did. But Lana knew the truth. Or had. Lana's son went to live with her aunt in Hilo, a gentle woman with quiet hands and a garden of succulents that never died. He was 6. He asked about his mom every Sunday. Did she go to take pictures of the moon again? Is she coming back when I'm 10? One day, he pointed to the sky and said, that cloud looks like her. But only if you squint. The aunt never corrected him, only hugged him tighter. Months passed. The school Lana once taught at held a candlelight vigil. No photo, no funeral, just music, flowers, notes tied to white balloons. One balloon read, Ms. Lana, I still remember when you said cameras capture truth. You captured mine. I hope you know that. Another read, I wish you were here. People lie less when you're around. And then there was the wooden sign. hung by a former student on the gate. Painted in block letters. She didn't disappear, she just moved somewhere no one lies. The sign stayed up for 2 weeks before someone took it down. But by then, it didn't matter, because truth, once told, doesn't vanish, it haunts. And Lana, wherever she was, had become more than a woman. She was a consequence, a ghost in the shape of justice. A name no one could say without shame. And in Pearl City, when the sun set just right, some swore they could hear her shutter click. Like a final word, like proof that someone once dared to see everything and still chose to tell the world. And maybe, just maybe, that was the bravest thing anyone ever did. But if Lana from Pearl City was the ghost that haunted a lie too long hidden, then Tama from Molokai was the storm no one saw coming. When the island is small, secrets don't stay buried, unless someone buries them for good. Up next on Infidelity Chronicles. Tama from Molokai. His wife thought the island was too small for secrets. A betrayal, a meal, and a legend no one dares speak of after dark.